He's basically denied having anything to do with this killing. In the jailhouse interview, he told me that it was important for people to know that he is not some monster and someone who is out to do evil. And Victoria, as you've been telling us, I mean, he's denied this from day one and took the stand in narrative and talked in great detail about many different things during this trial.
Yeah, I know it was pretty unusual to see him take the stand, but he said since day one he wanted to tell his side of the story during trial. This was testimony by narrative. We were watching him talking on the stand for almost 3 days. For a good chunk of it, he just kind of rambled. He talked about his work in the public administrator's office, his background info, how he was an HVAC technician before he got into law. And then with every few seconds, he just said, I didn't do it. I didn't kill him. He even said that this could have been a trained assassin given the severity of the wounds on Gehrman's body. But he kept saying he didn't do it. He kept saying that he's being framed. The evidence was planted. And talking about the evidence, there's a lot of evidence here, right? We have the straw hat that was cut up. We have the shoes that the suspect was wearing and caught on video that was found in Tellis's home. But he can't explain the DNA evidence, right? Tellis's DNA was found underneath Gehrman's fingernails. He was questioned about it. He was pressed about it. And we're taking a live look right now inside the courtroom. You see reporters gathering in there. The women in the red, they're the people who are working in the public administrator's office right now. They've been there for a few days. They've been waiting outside the courtroom, along with our reporters. They're anticipating this verdict coming in.
Yeah, and you can see the security officer standing right next to them. Once again, our reporters in the courtroom saying there are around 7 security officers in there right now, saying there are typically around 4. So again, you know, now that we have the shot and we're seeing things in the courtroom, people are now prepared and ready to hear this verdict, and we'll continue waiting, Victoria. You know, and you talked about the evidence. You know, as we saw from the trial, Robert Tellis basically said, I was framed, but he never talked about what evidence he had that he was framed, or that, you know, regarding the fingernail evidence, the DNA in Jeff Gehrman's fingernails, the hat that we all saw on TV of the alleged killer walking down the street, and the shoes that you mentioned. Again, we're still looking at a live picture waiting for the verdict to come down. But, you know, he didn't have evidence, but he doesn't have to provide evidence. I mean, he doesn't have to prove his innocence. The prosecution has to prove that he did what they're accusing him of, and that is murder. So did the jury, you know, did that cast any doubt in the jury? I guess that's one thing they have been debating.
Yeah, so he was pressed about it with the prosecutors, right? How on earth did your DNA evidence get underneath Gehrman's fingernails? His simple answer was, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't do it. That's kind of all we heard from him throughout this trial. And I want to talk about his demeanor a little bit, right? We noticed when he was addressing the jury, his voice was low. He turned his chair. He faced them directly. And then you noticed him getting grilled by the prosecutors on the stand. His face was, he was just leaning back on his chair, just, you know, not very vocal, and just really a couple of words of an answer as well, right? And then the jury had questions for him. One of the last questions we heard during the trial also was, how tall are you without those lifts in your shoes? When did your wife find out about that affair? He had to address it, right? But we're taking another look inside that courtroom. You see the prosecutors, one of the prosecutors, Chris Hamner, right there waiting. The back row right there is Gehrman's family, a lot of them packing into that courtroom. Again, I've mentioned they've been in there every single day of this trial. It has to be hard on them, but they're there. And then we see Tellis right here walking out, just minutes away from finding out if he's guilty or not guilty.
And well, very soon, we're expecting to hear this, so they're pretty much now in the courtroom. We're prepared to hear this verdict. Will it be guilty? Will it be not guilty? Will the jury side with him and say, hey, I was framed, that evidence was planted? Or did they look beyond that and say, no, that's not the case, the evidence was solid? And all right, let's listen in.
The record reflects that the hearing is taking place outside the presence of the jury panel. The court has marked as Courts Exhibit 27 and 28 notes received from the jury panel. Does the state want to say anything?
No, Your Honor.
The defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, at this time we can bring the jury panel in. You can bring the jury panel.
Yes, ma'am. All rise for entering jury order. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated.
Does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel as well as the two alternates?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Jaskowitz?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Juror number 2, have you been selected to be the foreperson?
Yes.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
Will you please hand the verdict form to Officer Hobbs? Okay, the clerk will now read the verdict form out loud. The defendant and his attorneys will stand for the reading of the verdict.
District Court, Clark County, Nevada, State of Nevada, Plaintiff versus Robert Tellis, Defendant, case number C-368-935, Department number 12, verdict. We, the jury in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Robert Tellis, as follows. Murder with use of a deadly weapon, victim 60 years of age or older. Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon, victim 60 years of age or older. Special verdict. The jury unanimously finds the murder willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The jury unanimously finds the murder was committed by means of lying in wait. The jury unanimously finds the murder was committed by means of elder abuse. Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon. Special verdict. The jury unanimously finds the murder willful, deliberate, premeditated. Do you want me to finish this?
I'm just going to have the attorneys approach for just a moment.
Thank you, Judge.
Because
All right, that is former public administrator Robert Tellis, now convicted killer Robert Tellis, finding him guilty of murder. So Victoria, obviously the jury did not buy that his denials, that he did not do this, that he was framed, and that evidence was planted. We saw Robert Tellis, you can see him right there, looking down, a somber look right now. You could see as the verdict was read, his head was down, and he basically was shaking his head no. And right now
Dated
he's...
this 28th day of August,
Okay, let's listen
2024,
more.
signed by foreperson, juror number 2. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are these your verdicts as read? So say you one, so say you all?
Okay, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, the clerk is going to ask you a question. I just ask that you respond yes or no.
Juror number 1 is, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 2, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 3, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 4, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 5, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 6, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 7, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 8, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 10, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 11, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes.
Juror number 12, are these your verdicts as read?
Yes. At this time, the clerk will record the verdict in the official record of the court. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, pursuant to your verdict, we will now go into the penalty phase of the trial. We're going to take a break and allow the attorneys to get prepared for that penalty phase. So we will start again at 1:30. At this time, you'll all be able to be back together again. You're going to go with the court officer back to the jury deliberation room. And at 1:30, we will begin the penalty phase of this trial. Thank you very much, and you're excused.
Thank you. All right, you're back to the jury, please. Jury, please go to the jury.
Okay, that is Robert Tellis, now convicted of murder here in Las Vegas for the murder of Jeff Gehrman. Robert Tellis looking down, not a whole lot of expression. Victoria looks like he was shaking his head no at some point, but...
And I did see him before that, the tense moments before that verdict was read. You know, we have a clear picture of his face. He had his head down, had his eyes closed as well, and now he's being escorted away. The judge also just mentioned a penalty phase. You know, we've been talking about this. The jury not only had to find him guilty or not guilty, which we know it's now guilty, they're also going to have to decide the sentence he's going to face. This is pretty usual in a murder trial. Sometimes the judge can obviously waive that, but as you heard Judge Levitt say, that the jury will now decide. Right now, he is facing life without parole.
And Victoria, obviously, you know, we heard from police, and it sounded like they had strong evidence. I mean, they had the hat, the cut-up hat in his house, the shoes that we allegedly saw on camera in his house. They had the DNA of Robert Tellis under the fingernails of Jeff Gehrman, and people talked about how he struggled. And that was probably one of the key things. I mean, to have that DNA evidence to put him there, apparently the jury saw that and convicted him of murder.
Not only that, right, Joe, there was a surprising text that came up in trial. It was coming from Tellis' wife's Apple Watch, that "Where are you?" text message coming in September 2nd, 2022, around 10:36 a.m. That "Where are you?" text was not found in Tellis' cell phone. So obviously prosecutors were trying to indicate, could he have deleted it, right? His phone was, you know, taken apart, all his messages. That message was not found. And then you see a picture here of the cut on his finger. When asked about that, he kept saying that he was Googling a chicken fried rice recipe. And then that was brought up in court. It just showed you how they were really dissecting every word coming out of his mouth. That Google chicken fried rice recipe was not on his phone. So that just shows you literally how they were just analyzing everything. And again, he didn't have to take this stand. He wanted to. Now that he did, it was fair game for prosecutors to grill him with anything they wanted to grill him with, right? The evidence. And what I observed while Tellis was on this stand is he kept saying, like, "I believe this," or "I believe that." The judge had to intervene a couple of times with objections and saying that, hey, you only can testify based on observation and evidence. Your opinions here do not matter.
And you certainly wonder, I mean, did that hurt him then by testifying in narrative and taking the stand for all of those hours? You know, he talked to the media openly when this all happened, gave a lot of jailhouse interviews, including to myself, and then he wanted to be his own attorney at one point, but the judge really said you need to be careful about that and decided that is not the way he was going to go. So, of course, we are going to continue watching this. We do have cameras in the courtroom looking for more reaction. Of course, we'll stay on top of this and watch more of the verdict. Robert Tellis guilty of murdering Jeff Garman coming up on Fox 5 News in later news editions.